Greetings and welcome to another Mustang Monday. Last week, not nearly as productive as it needed to be. I'm running out of time quickly. I did get some stuff done though. Ended up spending a fair bit of time doing online research, looking for parts and components and stuff like that, trying to figure out exactly what I needed. I ran into a minor little issue with one of the window pieces, as you'll see a little later on in the video, but for the most part, I did get some stuff done, so hopefully more next week. So this week, one of the most useful time savers that I did get accomplished was I got the door handles in. I have been reaching into the door and pulling on the stupid little release rod for 5-6 years now, and finally I got frustrated with it. I pulled the handles out, roughed them up, and painted them. I found a new favorite color, flat black Rust-Oleum enamel. It's actually closer to a satin. Oh, it's pretty. It's a great color. I think I want to paint the whole car that color. It looks fantastic. Door handles and components are pretty cheap, but the reality is right now every penny counts. So I took the original factory handles, roughed them up real good so that they'd hold paint, gave them a shot of primer, and then a couple of good coats of this new Rust-Oleum black, flat black enamel. Like I said, seems to take a pretty good beating so far. Hopefully it'll hold up. Once they were painted and had plenty of time to cure, I started putting the handles together. They've been in bags for 5 years, so the pieces were all there conveniently enough. I got the first bolt in really easily and then spent the next, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes looking for the hole for the other side of the handle. I looked up, I looked down, I looked this way, I looked that way, and well, there it is right there. Once you figure out where to put the screw, the whole thing goes together pretty quickly. With the car turned around, it was a lot easier to access the driver's side door as well. So got all the rods and stuff like that and linkages clipped in place, and well, now that I know where the screw goes, this went together much quicker on this side. And we have a nice, new, functioning old door. One of the things I did do this week was I got the rear bumper temporarily installed. It's not actually fastened down or secured. It's just in place right now so that I don't have to worry about it falling off the top of the car anymore and or wrecking a thing. And then I got the garage cleaned up enough that I could turn the car around on the casters so I could start work on the front end. Hopefully sometime in the next week or two I'm going to be installing motor and transmission. And in order to do that, I've got to get to the front end of the car because that's where the motor goes, right? So I got all the metal that I store underneath the car, out from underneath the car, and then all the other junk that was under there. Got the wheel on, jack stands out of the way, dug the bumper off the trunk lid, and just temporarily affixed it so that when I spun it around, I didn't have to think about it anymore. Wasn't planning on leaving the bumper on long term, but for right now, realistically, what'll probably happen is it'll get secured in place and driven. I hope. Once the bumper was on, the tires were on, I took the car down off the jack stands and put it on the casters and started moving things around so that I could spin the car around. Probably should have taken the stuff out of it so it didn't weigh quite as much. Would have made this a little easier. Who wants to do things the easy way? The universal for the transmission yoke came in finally, and I was able to get that pressed in without any sort of odd occurrences or incidences, which is always a good thing when using hydraulic pressure. And the area where I lost what was perhaps the most time this weekend was in the driver's side vent window. I started taking that apart, painting it, putting it back together, and when I was putting it back together I realized that I threw away the little metal channel that went in there that holds the weather stripping. I spent a good chunk of the week looking for a replacement, and I had come to terms with the fact that I wasn't going to be able to replace it and I was going to have to figure out something else to do. And that was when I realized that I needed to go ahead and pull the passenger window out from the attic upstairs and do some comparisons so that I would figure out what I was going to be able to fabricate and not fabricate. While I was in the middle of that, I realized that the reason that I thought I had a problem, and I didn't really, was because this piece here is all one piece. All I had was this piece. At some point in time, it had broken. I don't know if I broke it or if it was broken when I got the car, but it wasn't there. So I was looking for something that didn't exist. Once I realized what part I needed, I was able to order the weather stripping for it, and since I didn't feel like waiting for the part or trying to buy a whole new one for 60 bucks, I tacked on an extra little piece, milled it out so that it would fit, and all it's got to do is hold the weather stripping, and I've got a plan for that. While I was working on the windows, I took the new weather stripping for the quarter panel window and went ahead and, since that window was all painted up and ready to go, attached that weather stripping and then stuck it back in its protected container. And then I started working on the vent window. This was way more complicated than I expected it to be. I tried to get it in there without taking the division bar off, and it didn't work. So I ended up having to cut the rivets on the division bar, then start assembling the whole thing. And that was about the time that I realized that I had the aforementioned problem with that missing piece. This vent window was way more difficult to put together with the new weather stripping in it, by the way. And once I had the weather stripping in there and the window in there, I was able to rivet the frame and get the division bar back in place. I drug the passenger side vent window out, and that was when I discovered the differences in what I thought I had and what I was supposed to have. So just got a piece of sheet metal, cut it down, used the 3-in-1 to form it into a U-channel of sorts that will fit in the division bar. Then I'm going to mill it out, clean it up, and glue the weather stripping in place. I used the passenger side window run to make sure that I had the right layout so that the spacing was correct. But stuck it in the vise and milled out the holes. Got the other end off with a bandsaw so that it's all nice and sharp and pointy like the other one. And then trimmed the excess edges off with a pair of hand snips. Tapped it in place for a test fit. Looks like it's going to line up and work just fine. I secured everything in place and tack welded it. Then once everything was solidly welded around, I ground it down, cleaned it up, threw a coat of primer on it, and then a coat of beautiful satin black enamel. So, as you can see, not a very productive week. Didn't get a whole lot done, which is unfortunate because I've only got 12 more weeks left to go. It's going to be here really, really quick.